It was a cold, dark night when a man named Mark left his daughter alone in the forest. Mark was an abusive alcoholic who would often beat his wife and children. One day, after a particularly brutal beating, the mother decided to leave him. She took the children with her and moved to a new town. The father was so enraged that he drove to the new town and kidnapped his youngest daughter, Fiona. He wanted to tease his wife, so she left the young Fiona in the forest. She was only 6 years old, and she was paralyzed from the waist down. She could not move her legs, and she could not call for help. She tried to crawl away, but she couldn't go very far. The father had taken her wheelchair away, so she couldn't even get to it. The girl lay in the darkness, crying and shaking with fear. She knew her father wasn't coming back for her. She knew she was going to die there alone. Hours passed, and the girl's cries turned to moans of pain. She was thirsty and hungry. Fiona was terrified as the wolves were speaking loudly. She was shaking and crying uncontrollably. The wolf waited patiently for the right moment to strike. When the child was alone and vulnerable, the wolf was ready to attack. The child had no chance to defend itself and was quickly devoured. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The wolf grabbed her with its teeth and dragged her into the forest. The girl's father had left her there alone, disabled and helpless. She cried out for help, but no one came. The wolves were closing in on her. She was surrounded, and there was no way out. She closed her eyes and prepared for the worst. Suddenly, she heard a noise. It sounded like someone was coming towards her with a campfire. The wolf left her there and ran to save his own life. It was a woman, and she had a kind face. Fiona didn't know if she could trust this person, but she was so scared and alone that she decided to take the risk. The woman wrapped the girl in a blanket and took her to safety. Little Fiona was dehydrated and malnourished, but she survived. The old woman had a special way with animals and helped Fiona learn to love and care for them too. The old lady was a wife of a hunter who took her back to his home and cared for her. Despite her disability, she learned to survive in the forest and even thrived. Over time, Fiona regained the use of her legs with the help of the old lady and began to walk again. The father returned to the forest years later, looking for his daughter. When he found her, she was living happily with the hunter and his wife. The father was filled with regret for what he had done and begged for forgiveness. She never went to forgive a cruel man, but she eventually left the forest to return to her family. But she always cherished the time she spent with the old woman and the lessons she learned about life and love. She is now an empowered girl that learned from that experience that it's always better to be proactive and take risks instead of sitting around waiting for something bad to happen. She still wonders about the horrific act of savagery of his own father. It's a stark reminder of the dangers that exist in the world and how important it is to be vigilant at all times.